Now that we've started setting up our OTL hierarchy such that we have OTLs merging things from other OTLs, it might be nice to have a standardized way of enforcing our convention of how we get outputs of various OTLs into other nodes. Now, the way that we're doing this currently, if I just allow editing of contents here and then go inside and look at the object merge here, is we're hard coding the convention that there will be a /output node here. And if you imagine that we want to change that convention somehow, for example, maybe instead of hard coding a path, we want to have a Python function that gets called from the OTL that allows the OTL to just say, hey, this is my output, or something like that. It'd be a pretty big hassle to go through all of our OTLs and change how they're getting things from the inputs. So what would be useful is if we could define a custom expression function that would allow us to just append this output. And then if we need to change how we're going to get the outputs from things, we can just change that expression function and it'll update everywhere. So that's what we're going to look at in this video, is how to do something like that. We're not going to change the convention itself. We're just going to change how we're getting this value. Now, the first thing that we need to do is define a file where we're going to be creating this hscript expression function. So I'm just going to put this in my Houdini user pref dir scripts directory. In reality, it can kind of live anywhere, but this seems like a fairly convenient place to put it. So I'm just going to say new text document. I'm going to call it expression functions.cmd. Yes, change the extension. So I'm going to say that whenever I define new custom expressions to use in Houdini, I'm going to put them into this file. I'll just edit it with Notepad++. And for now, let's just create a really simple function. We'll say something like string get output, and we'll name it the right thing and give it the right arguments right off the bat, just so that we're ready to go when we create the real function. And so we'll just give it a string argument called base path, and then use curly braces to say that we are creating a code block for this function. And then for now, I'm just going to say echo blorg. And that's going to be my expression. And now all we need to do to get this expression into Houdini is go to our text port and say xread $Houdini user pref dir /scripts /expression functions.cmd. And in fact, it's giving me an error saying that it can't load the function. And the reason for that is that it expects, instead of just echoing a value, it expects us to return a string. So we'll just change it to be returned like that. And now if I write xread, I can get my expression. And we can test it by saying echo get output. And I'm going to go ahead and just give it a real path, even though we're not actually using it right now. So let's say our emitter. And remember, we're putting this in backticks because we're in a text port, which means it's an hscript environment. And so in order to get it to actually evaluate expressions, we need to put them inside backticks, just as if we were inside a string parameter. So if I hit enter, I get my friendly blorg. So this is all well and good, but how do we go about making it so that this get output function is always available? Because if we're going to be using it in our OTLs, we want to make sure that if Houdini crashes or we just shut down for the night and come back, we want to make sure that our get output function is still going to work. So we can't be xreading this path every single time we start Houdini. So the way we can do that is we can actually define a startup script, and we can tell where to put that by going to our help contents. And under Python scripting, scrolling down, under Python script locations, there's a startup scripts subheading, which tells us where all of our startup scripts are. Now we can put it in the Python RC, or we can put it into the 123.py, or we can put it into the 456.py. And the differences between these files are documented in the Houdini help. For now, I'm going to just say that we're going to put it into the 456.py. And this is the one that gets run whenever a scene file is loaded, which happens when Houdini starts up because it's loading an empty scene. And it also happens when we load any HIP file. So that's what we want. We want this expression function to always be available. So it goes into the 456. So I'll just close this down and let's go ahead and create our 456.py. That's here under just Houdini user pref dir / scripts. We're going to put it as 456.py. It's okay, Windows, relax. And edit with Notepad++. And all we need to do here is run that xread command that we did from our text port. Now, if you are somewhat familiar with how Houdini's startup scripts work, you might be wondering why we're doing a Python script when we want to run an hscript command. And Houdini does actually support having a 456.cmd. I like to just put everything into a single file, and I kind of expect that I'll need to be able to do some kind of Python for my startup. So I kind of want to just put everything into my 456.py. And fortunately, there's a handy Python function called who.hscript, which lets us run these hscript commands from Python. So we're going to say xread $Houdini user pref dir / scripts / expression functions.cmd. And now if I save and I just start up a blank Houdini, I'll just quickly hit Alt-Shift-T to open a text port. I should be able to just say echo backticks get output /obj, whatever, we're not using it for now. And we do indeed get blorg. Another way that we can tell that this is working is if we go to the edit menu and go to aliases and variables. I know it's a little bit confusing because it says aliases and variables and we're looking for expressions, but it just happens to be in the same window. So if we just go to the expressions tab, we can see our expression along with its text here. So I'll just go ahead and close this down, and let's just close this Houdini session. And let's go ahead and just make our expression work. Now there's a couple of different ways that we can handle this. We could just go ahead and append /output hard-coded in hscript, and it wouldn't be that hard. We could just say base path plus / output. But I'd kind of like to do some more sophisticated magic in a Python function. So let's look at how we're going to use a Python function inside of this hscript function. And honestly, I kind of hate hscript a lot, and I don't want to ever use it if I can get away with it. So generally speaking, I'll just make a habit of always switching back out into Python unless I'm doing something extremely basic. So in this case, we need to make it easy to call Python from inside of this function. And the way that we're going to do that is by creating an external Python module that Houdini can just go ahead and import. Fortunately, Houdini defines a default place to put our Python scripts where it can just import them directly. And that's in this Houdini user pref dir / scripts, and then we can just create a Python directory in here. And that's going to be automatically added to the Houdini Python path. So if we go in here, we can just define a new text document. And we can call this anything. It's just up to us to make it descriptive. I'm just going to call it expressions.py. And that's going to be my Python module where I'm going to store Python functions that I'm going to then use in expressions. So if I go ahead and edit this, and let's just go ahead and make a Python version of the function that we want. So we'll say def get output. We want our base path here. And then we'll say something like path equals, we'll just use format syntax, format, and then we'll say something like base path dot rstrip slash, and that just means that if there's a slash on the end of my base path, we won't end up getting a double slash here when it replaces this double curly brace with the base path. And then maybe I can do some nice magic where I say if not who.node path return base path. Just so that if the node does not contain an output node, it will just return whatever the path that we passed in is. If it does exist, we can just return path. Go ahead and hit Control S to save. And let's go ahead and see if we can import this in Houdini. Now, since we just created this Python directory, it's not going to be available in our old Houdini session. So I'm just going to go ahead and restart Houdini. I'm going to split my pane top to bottom and create a Python shell and just see if I can import expressions. And I can say expressions.getOutput, give it some path. And it's complaining that who is not defined. So let's just go ahead and add an import who to my expressions.py. And I'll just reload expressions so that we pick up the change. And since /obj does not have an output node in it, we get /obj. So let's just go ahead and open up our other scene and try it out on one of our OTLs and make sure that it works. So if I go to my create emitter OTL, let's just do expressions.getOutput. And then we're just going to use the create emitter OTL. And even though we gave it the create emitter OTL's parent path, we did in fact get the /output because that's a node that exists. So just for cleanliness sake, I'm going to quickly reopen my expressions.py. And I'm just going to say if the original base path doesn't exist, so if not who.node base path, we're just going to return nothing straight away. And that's just to make it nice and clean, and it'll make it a little bit nicer for when we're using it in Python expressions, which we'll be doing later. All right, so let's take a look at how we can go about using this expression in HScript. So if we go back over here to our expression functions.cmd, the way that we can use it is with a Python exprs function. And let's just look at how that works in our text port first. So I'm going to open a text port. I'm going to say echo and do a backtick Python exprs. And the way this works is if I just back up one character, you can see that there's also a Python exprf function. And this one is for returning floats, and this one is for returning strings. So we want the one that returns a string because it's going to return a path. So Python exprs. And then all I have to do is inside the quotes, I'm going to give it a Python expression, which is just something that returns some value. In this case, I could do something like expressions dot get output. In fact, I can just hard code the path. So we're going to say expressions dot get output. Here's the path. And we can see that we get our happy output path there. Now this is a little bit deceptive because there is a problem with how we're doing this, and that is that Houdini actually shouldn't be able to find this expressions module. It's only finding it because I imported it over here, and we can see how that works if we just open up a blank Houdini session. And let's just open a textport and do the same thing. S. And if I hit enter, now it's going to tell me name expressions is not defined because it's not imported anymore. So that's pretty easy to fix. We just need to go to our 456.py and import expressions here. And that way our expressions module will always be available no matter where we are in Houdini, just on startup. So now that we've got this, let's just skip the step where we test that in Houdini because it involves restarting Houdini a bunch of times. So let's just go over to our expressions functions.cmd and put that Python express function in there. We're going to say expressions.getOutput. I'm just going to use a single quote so that I can enclose it in a double quote, and we can just use the plus to append base path here. Plus double quotes, single quote to close off this single quote, which is inside the string. Close the parentheses. Close the double quotes for this one. And then close the parentheses for this one. So let's take a look at what we just did. We're going to say do Python x per s, which just means we're going to give it a Python expression that's going to return some value, and it's going to be a string. And that value needs to be surrounded by double quotes, which is what we have here. We're going to give it expressions.getOutput is what's going to return our value. Part of the Python expression is the open parenthesis, open single quote. Then we use double quotes to close off the string that we're passing to Python x per s for now. We're going to add base path to that, then add some other string in double quotes, and that string is just closing off the single quote and the parenthesis for our Python expression. So what this is going to evaluate to is if we give it, I'm just going to type it out down here, what it'll evaluate to. I'll just copy paste this. If we give something like /obj as our base path, Houdini is going to say, oh, okay, so this is going to be /obj. And then it's going to resolve this plus operator, which is going to just get rid of all of these. And then it's going to resolve this plus operator, which is just going to get rid of this part. And then we're going to have something like expressions.getOutput/obj inside of our double quotes. And that's what we're passing into Python x per s. Python x per s is then going to run this expression, which is going to jump over to our expressions.py here and run this function, passing in the base path that we specified here, because Houdini HScript replaced this variable with that thing that we passed in. All right, I'm just going to delete that for now. We're going to hit Control S to save. And let's just go ahead and launch Houdini and see if this works. I'm going to go ahead and open my custom expressions HIP file. And let's try it out in a text port first. So I'm just going to split pane top bottom. I'm going to right click and go to text port. And let's just say echo in backticks get output. And I want to get the output of my create emitter node, so I'm going to drop that in here. And I do in fact get the output of my create emitter node. So that means all I need to do is go inside my create lines OTL, go to my get emission surface object merge, and we're going to just say we don't need this anymore because we're going to be getting it from the expression function. Now we're getting op input path here, which is notably the path that we want to pass into our get output function, right? So that means that all we need to do is just say get output, open quotes, open parenthesis, and then go to the end here and say close parenthesis. So we're just passing in this op input path expression to our get output function. If I hit enter, something seems to have worked because it just brought everything in. And if I middle click on the parameter label here, we can see that it did indeed get my output. So this kind of thing can be really useful. If you notice that you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, odds are you might want to change that thing that you're doing over and over and over again. So it can be really a good idea to abstract that out into a function so that you can change it all at once. In this video, we looked at how to create a startup script for Houdini, make that startup script add a custom expression function to Houdini, and we also looked at where Houdini looks for custom Python modules so that we could use it in our custom expression. In future videos, we'll be using this expression in all of our OTLs to make sure that the way that we're getting output from other OTLs is standardized.